We're covering Week 1 here at SBR Forum Videos. I'm Peter Loshak, and we're covering every NFL game this year. But for the Monday night games, we are covering the Monday Night Football games with a roundtable, with a panel, more than one guest, because Monday night games demand it and require it. And so today we are talking with Dave Golikoff, senior sports columnist from AskMen.com, and returning guest Scott Kellen from SixCentSports.com. Thanks, guys, for being here once again.
Thanks, Peter.
All right, so the first Monday night game this Monday is the Bengals at Ravens. The Ravens are 6-point home favorite. Total is 41. Let's start with you, Dave, since you specifically mentioned that you thought you saw an edge on this game. Now, both of these teams, the season's looking up for them. The Ravens have Flacco and Rice looking to implement their up-tempo offense, and the Bengals, of course, have Andy Dalton and A.J. Green, who is now healthy. They faded a little bit at the end of the year last year, but in the beginning of the year, they were a great bet against the spread. I'm looking at this game. I'm actually thinking that the over 41 might be a great bet here. Again, the Ravens are playing a new up-tempo offense. The Bengals should be able to score with Dalton and Green. Is that how you see this game, Dave?
No, I actually like the Ravens, and
Okay.
I know it's going to be not a very popular pick laying the big spread with Baltimore, because I think a lot of people would rather take the points with the Bengals in a divisional game. But I just see the Bengals as I think they've hit their high water mark and they're rolling back a little bit. I think they had a bit of an easy schedule last year. They had, as you mentioned, they faded down the stretch. They haven't looked great in the preseason, and I actually think they took some steps backwards in the offseason. I think losing Jerome Simpson is a big loss for that wide receiving core. I don't think they have anybody else who's really capable besides A.J. Green. Jermaine Gresham is a bit banged up. And losing Cedric Benson was a head-scratcher for me, too, because they've replaced him with Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, who's kind of a vanilla runner, and Bernard Scott has never really taken the reins anyways. On top of that, you hear criticisms of Andy Dalton quite a bit in the preseason, and he was sort of up and down as well. And I have some question marks about that offensive line, which has now lost 2 starters for the season. So I think that the Baltimore Ravens, they can dominate this line, dominate the line of scrimmage on defense. I think they have the better defense anyways. I don't think they're going to have as hard of a time with the Bengals offense as they did last year. And few offenses, as you mentioned, with that up-tempo attack have looked as good as the Ravens in the preseason. I just think they're going to roll in this game. I don't think it's going to be close.
All right, well, maybe we combine what you think and what I think and take the Ravens team total over. Scott Kellen from 6 Cent Sports, one of the most respected NFL spread analysts in the industry. Thanks for joining us. And what do you make of the Ravens -6 and my lean towards the over 41?
Yeah, thanks, Peter, and thanks for having me on again this year. I tend to agree probably with both of you guys. I look at this game, Baltimore for me does qualify in a couple of very strong Week 1 situations. Week 1 obviously is a little bit of a guessing game, obviously, because preseason doesn't necessarily tell you what's going to happen in Week 1, but nevertheless they do qualify in a couple of great situations. And Dave touched on some of the things, a couple other things. Cincinnati last year, and obviously from last year to this year, a lot of things can change, but Cincinnati last year was 0-8 against playoff teams. So they really did all their work against poor teams, essentially, to get to the record they got to. Against good teams on the road, they lost by 7 at Baltimore. I'd have to go back and look at, but if memory serves me right, I think they were down even more in that game. But they lost by 7. They lost 35-7 at Pittsburgh. They lost 31-10 at Houston in a playoff game. And they even lost by 8 at home to Baltimore at the end of the year last year as well. So when they've stepped up in class last year, they really didn't perform very well. And obviously Baltimore is a step up in class for them. And I think in 2010 they lost by 6 at Baltimore as well. So they haven't necessarily done real well at Baltimore when they played the last couple of years. They do have offensive line issues. They lost Bobby Williams, who is actually on Baltimore right now. They brought in Travell Wharton from Carolina. He got hurt. He's out. Kyle Cook, their center, went down, and now they brought in Jeff Fain. I think they signed him less than a week ago. He's not a great run blocker, so they do have some issues on the offensive line. You know, they were fairly good against preventing sacks last year, primarily because Dalton gets rid of the ball pretty quickly. But I still think they're going to have some issues, especially being able to run the ball. Bernard Scott is out, like you said, Peter, so they're going to be relying heavily on Ellis. And again, that was kind of a head-scratcher, like Dave said, giving up on Cedric Benson. I mean, one thing they're going to get, they lost a guy who fumbled a lot. They're getting a guy who never fumbles. But short of that, I don't know if that's an equal replacement. And who's going to be their second receiver? Simpson's gone. They've got to have someone step up there. So they could have some issues there. They also drafted, I think, Trey Fitzpatrick. He's out in the secondary. Leon Hall's coming back from an injury, so we don't know how well he's going to perform early on. They've got some issues there. And then when you look at Baltimore, they were 7-1 against playoffs teams last year. The one loss they had was by 3 at New England in the playoffs that they probably should have won. The couple concerning things I would have with Baltimore, and I still lean their way, obviously Suggs is out, Jarrett Johnson, Corey Redding are gone. Those 3 guys represented probably about half of their sacks last year, so they are going to have to replace that. Their offensive line's getting a little old. They almost got rid of the left tackle, Bryant McKinney, this week, and he agreed to take a pay cut to stay. But also, as you said, they're going with this no-huddle offense, and Flacco loves it. They've thrived in it, so I would expect to see that again, and that should help with the scoring as well. Torrey Smith should be very good this year. He obviously had some influence on their offense last year, and this year I would expect it to be even more. So with the system and all the things I just mentioned, I would lean towards Baltimore here, and I think it could be a high-scoring game as well.
All right, excellent. Awesome analysis, guys, and I am definitely loving the Ravens team total over. Thanks, guys.